long time, Xavier Mushum had not been able to walk along the bank of this river, where his ancestors came to fish.
We have a family cemetery here, in this very river. Last year, my father's ashes were spread in the water.
At 8 years old, he was removed from the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. In the decade that followed, he was shuffled between 14 different foster homes.
I come here often to be alone, so I can pray for myself and also for my community.
At the mercy of social services, Mushum was uprooted from his community and culture. He was not the only child swept into a flawed system. According to a ruling from the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, since the 1990s, more than 160,000 Indigenous children have been victims of systemic discrimination by Canada's First Nations Child and Family Service.
Look at those elbows. Look at those. Good job. Good job, Jordan. You did it.
Jordan River Anderson was one of these victims. He was just 5 years old when he died in 2005 from a rare disease after living his entire life in a hospital. Jordan could not be discharged because for 3 years, the provincial and federal governments argued about who would foot the bill for his home care. His case struck a nerve. Canada adopted Jordan's principle in his memory, a commitment that First Nations children would get the services they need when they need them. But it didn't fix widespread discrimination. Trauma runs deep in Indigenous communities such as this one in Lac-Simon, a territory of the Anishinaabe Nation. It's the starting point of a 15-year-long legal battle with Ottawa over the failures of the children welfare system.
The battle First Nations peoples led here in Quebec or in Canada is a long one. Luckily, we have allies who are able to accompany us in the steps we take to prove that our children are important, that they have rights, that they have the right to be with their parents, to practice their cultural traditions and speak their own language. This is fundamental. It's the core of a society. It's essential to our way of life. If they take that away from us, what do we become?
After appealing the court ruling in favor of Indigenous people, the federal government ended up negotiating a record $40 billion settlement. Half of the money will go towards compensating victims, the other half for reforming the system.
But no amount of money can reverse the harms that First Nations children have experienced or return the years of lost love, really, family, that was suffered through the separation from families, communities, and culture. Historic injustices do require historic reparations, and our shared goal is to achieve a settlement that can be delivered to families as soon as possible.
The Assembly of First Nations called the agreement historic, but welcomes it with caution. It still has yet to be ratified by Canadian courts. Critics of Justin Trudeau say too many promises have been broken. Trust in the government is low following a year marked by the discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves of children believed to be victims of forced internment in residential schools. In 2015, the Supreme Court ruled it a cultural genocide. It's a system that damaged generations, Xavier Mushum's dad included, who was forced to attend a residential school.
Here are the documents from the federal court, and my name, Xavier Mushum.
His only wish? That his victory in the courts doesn't end with a government check.
It's historic. Because it really was a genocide, you know. Being assimilated, being forbidden to speak your own language. I imagine that the new generation that is here today, who's coming to us, they will be better suited to manage that money. They could change.
The Anishinaabe Nation Council has launched its own youth protection legal services. The model is being adopted by other First Nations communities across Canada, a sign that things are changing in Lac-Simon.